Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast or summit. I'm Vicki Netling coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. And I am going to have a guest that I actually had on my podcast, loved him so much, had to get him on the summit. This is Ben Albert. And let me tell you about Ben and why I had to have him on the podcast or the summit. So when COVID hit, he was furloughed from work and he found himself down and out, starting at an energy handle or empty handle of whiskey. Oh, God. And he was unemployed, depressed, and felt unworthy. Instantaneously, he opened MacBook and started reaching out to strangers on LinkedIn. This spearheaded his entrepreneurial journey, and the rest is history. Now, Ben hosts a network of five podcasts called Real Business Connections, ranked top 2% globally, and has a massively successful marketing firm, Balbert Marketing, and has replaced his established sales income in just over a year. Ben found his way. Please welcome, he says an underdog, but no, he is a successful entrepreneur. I'm so excited to have you on the summit, Ben Albert. Welcome,
Vicky,
Ben.
I'm so excited to be here.
I
Such an
know.
honor, and it's been an amazing day. So I'm humbled to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I am absolutely excited to have you because we had such a great interview when I had you on the podcast. And I want you to share with the others. They may not have seen the podcast, so share your why. We talked just briefly about it, but that journey that you went on to go from where you were depressed to where opening that MacBook. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's the one liner is in just over a year I replaced that sales executive income, but it wasn't that simple. Um, uh, we talk about it in the bio, staring at an empty handle of Jim Beam whiskey. That wasn't the first time that it happened, and that wasn't the last time it would happen. And I had a lot of days during COVID where I'd look myself in the mirror and ask myself this question, like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
where are you going? Because I was moving up the corporate ladder. I was doing everything that I imagined I was supposed to do, what I was told I should do. And all of that was stripped from me during COVID when I was furloughed. I was let go. What I didn't realize at the time is it was a blessing in disguise because uh, everything that I had done in my life was preparing me for this moment. I mean, I barely spoke the first 13 years of my life. The first time I officially spoke in public was at my bar mitzvah,
I was going
the
to ask.
big Jewish ceremony. I'm crackling, I'm sweating buckets. So I never imagined I'd be a podcaster, an entrepreneur, be speaking at something like the Find Your Leadership Summit. It's super cool to me. Um, but that love of learning, that curiosity, loving putting chips on the little guy. I was that little guy, that growth mindset. I had
Yeah.
started a podcast in 2016 in the music industry. I had developed marketing chops, kind of moving up the corporate ladder. So when that, those moments looking in the mirror, wondering who the heck am I realized let's just step into the things I'm passionate about. I love to learn. I'm curious. I love podcasting. I've done it in music. Let's try it in business and built a local community following with a Rochester, New York, from my hometown
Mhm.
business show that has slowly grown into an international show that I guess is in the top 2%. But I'm just so humbled to learn from brilliant people every day, every week, like yourself, through podcasting.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about podcasting. And you've been at it for a little bit longer than me. And you've built this tremendous platform in this network. How has this allowed you to be more of an influencer than anything you've done before?
I forget who said it to me, but they coined me the thought leader at bringing together thought leaders. Because when I got started, I was utilizing podcasting to enhance my own intelligence and my own influence. I was some nobody from Rochester, New York. I mean, no one really knew who I was. All my clients at my previous firm were Texas, California, a lot of people in Utah and Minnesota, and not really Rochester.
Mm,
So I was a minnow in a sea of sameness. I was just any other marketer starting a business during COVID, and I had not ran a business
mhm.
before. So I wasn't a thought leader. I wasn't a business guru. I was not a leader. I still had to find my leadership and I still had to find my confidence. I was not confident. But what podcasting allowed me to do is surround me with the right kind of people that were able to take their years, in some cases 10, 20, 30 years experience, scaling businesses to hundreds, millions,
Mm,
huge businesses. I could sit down and learn from them,
mhm,
and they could take their 30 years experience and turn it into 60 seconds of lessons for me, which allowed me to gain a little more confidence, build my network while doing it. And most of my guests are not clients, but a lot of them are good friends. They're cheerleaders, they're peers. So it
mhm.
allowed me to build a powerful network, that I still don't see myself as an influencer or a thought leader. I'm just an ordinary dude learning as we go and documenting the process as best as I can.
And, one of the things that impressed me so much with you, I think I was halfway through the amount of podcasts that I had done. And after our podcast ended, I always chit chat with the people, it's to try to build those relationships. And you take the time to say, well, how can we work together? How can I help you? And I think that comes from your sense of people helped you in your start and you give back. And I was totally impressed with that.
Yeah, no one. I don't say hate much, but I hate the whole pulled myself up from my bootstraps and gritted my way to success because I'm resilient. No, you didn't. People helped you every
Yeah.
single step of the way. We all go through struggles. We can't accomplish anything. Can't accomplish a sale,
Yeah.
can't accomplish a community, can't accomplish an audience. Nothing is done on our own.
Yeah.
And every step of the way, someone helped me. And nowadays, I help other people as well. But I'll be honest, I think I'm helped more than I help. And it's my mission to help as many people as possible. But I'm also not afraid to ask for help,
Yeah.
ask for advice, get in the corner with brilliant people because I know that if I can learn, and I don't have to follow their exact playbook, we're different
Mhm.
beings. But if I can extract the right wisdom from brilliant people and then serve as a bridge to share that wisdom to others, this is a life mission that'll never end.
Yeah. The other thing that I like about podcasting, I'd like to hear your thoughts on is
Mm.
whenever I interview folks like yourself, I hear, what you're doing. And sometimes it's a validation to help that, imposter syndrome or whatever you might have, that lack of self confidence to say, oh crap, he believes that too. He understands that too. Maybe I'm okay in my path and my journey. So, talk about that a little bit and what have you experienced?
Yeah, and I've thought the whole empty handle of Jim Beam whiskey, like as an example, it's just a metaphor for we all go through those
Yeah.
tough times in our life. And I've thought about taking it out of the bio because it kind of defines my start, but doesn't entirely define who I am now. However, who I am now is nothing without the story that got me here. And I find
Yeah.
that by sharing stories openly, vulnerably, authentically, but also sharing successes, we
Mhm.
give people permission to realize that it's okay.
Yeah.
We all have nosebleeds. I start
Mhm.
almost every podcast episode. It all depends, but I'll read off a list. I had a Brendan Kane. He worked with Taylor Swift. He worked
Mm.
with some of the largest influencers in the world. So I just word vomit CMT, MTV, Taylor Swift, all the people he worked with. And then I like to start the podcast with, well, you didn't just roll out of bed. and become Taylor Swift's marketing guy,
Yeah.
right? What got you there? And
Mhm.
let's talk about some of the hard times. And
Yeah.
I love focusing on that story behind the story, the hard times, simply to give people permission to realize that most of us are just like you. In
Mhm.
most cases, the people I'm speaking to on my podcast, I'm just like them. They're just farther along.
Mhm.
They're just farther along. They're not any different or better or more special than you.
Yeah.
They're just in some cases farther along in one category or another. And honestly, like we could get really microscopic. Everyone I meet is
Mhm.
farther along in some category. We
Yeah.
can learn something from everyone.
So you talk about, you know, mistakes that people make along the way, and what were some of the mistakes that you made, even though things are going great? What were some of the missteps you had that you had to do some course correction along the way?
Every day there's a fail of some sort.
That's
A lot of times it's technical. So the when I started my Rochester, New York-based podcast, I thought,
Mhm.
let's do a 2-week launch. We'll do Monday through Friday for 2 weeks, get some momentum. I gained a lot of momentum, and I ended up doing a 22-day launch. November of 2020, we did an episode a day, Monday through Friday.
Mhm.
Half of those episodes, because I recorded like all of them in 2 weeks, I have this same mixer that I started with. The mixer wasn't set up right, and I had this deep, like, really fake sounding voice that's really bad. Um, and I had a cheat sheet of questions next to me, and I basically just went through the same questions every single time. And I didn't have confidence. I didn't have conviction. Wildly enough, no one seemed to care. They were just happy for the opportunity. Here's the thing, you don't have to be perfect, but
Yeah.
my mic was bad. I sounded bad. The video quality is bad. Still to this day, I'm working out of my guest bedroom.
Mhm.
Just earlier today, I was in an office space. I'm trying to rent a space so I can build like a podcasting studio. I'm in a
Mhm.
guest bedroom with a green screen and it doesn't always work. I probably don't even look that professional. Sometimes I get foggy, sometimes I
No,
disappear.
you're good.
But it's amazing because we all make mistakes and
Yeah.
there's little errors that happen all the time. People lend you grace.
Yeah.
People lend you way more grace than you anticipate.
I think Instagram and TikTok taught us that the ones that catch our attention are the ones that aren't perfect, you know, the ones that screw up because it holds our attention. We're hungry to see what else is coming next. And sometimes that's the way our podcasts go. But you know, I think that's what makes it. I don't want my podcast to be something that you don't think that you could do, because my whole
Mm,
goal is, this to me is a tremendous way to network and connect people. I don't think of myself as so much of an influencer as a connector.
yeah.
And so, who have you been able to connect with that has changed your trajectory over these past couple 3 years?
Hundreds of people.
Mhm.
It's amazing because it's everybody from a friend who's listens to the podcast that's now a referral partner that single-handedly like has brought in probably about $50,000 of gross
Yeah.
revenue just through referrals. And he was a listener well before, like that was just random person. And
Mhm.
then there's the people that I get to speak to from the podcast that you can't quantify with an ROI or revenue metric, but sitting down 2 times with Hala Taha, Young and Profiting Podcast, she's number 1 in the education space. She taught me everything she knew about podcasting in the first conversation. She's also one of the largest influencers on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
now that she has a LinkedIn masterclass, she came on my show and basically gave us like a huge fraction of the masterclass for free
Ah,
where I could ask her anything. And now she's a friend and a mentor. And just another example, Chris Van Vliet is a 4-time Emmy award-winning interviewer.
Mhm.
Not a ton of people know who he is, but he does the entertainment interviews, red carpet interviews, things like that.
Yeah.
He has scenarios where he only gets one question, or he has they call them junket interviews where they get
Yeah.
5 to 10 minutes, and he is different. It's not a long form scenario. He has to come
Mhm.
up with the perfect question and
Yeah.
deliver. And learning from people that are in my space, again, 10 steps ahead of me, they're not
Mhm.
any better than me per se, but they are really far ahead of me.
Yeah.
Learning from them is so humbling and
Mhm.
so fulfilling. Revenue aside, I could bring in no money from the podcast. The opportunity to learn from these brilliant people is something that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, that's what I love. I I don't mind going to networking meetings and meeting people in person, but I find that this is such a better way for me to network because I get 30 minutes at a minimum of your time, plus, the before and after chit-chatting, that I get to really start to build that know, like, and trust with these people and see how you can collaborate and to help one another. And sometimes you only have like a couple minutes with somebody in an in-person situation, or even some of the networking, online networking, where you might be in a room, a Zoom room for 5 minutes. So to me, podcasting is just such a gift.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't touch on that I want to just put a exclamation point on, because we were going to talk a little bit about like leveraging it for our own influence. Hala
Yeah.
Taha, Chris Van Vliet, we're not best friends, but we're on a first name basis now. I've
Yeah.
got testimonial, and I can utilize just being in their orbit to
Yeah.
help market myself to more podcast guests, to more listeners, and to more clients. I've heard this joke, I'm stealing it, but if you can't afford Tony Robbins, you might be able to afford the guy who trained with Tony Robbins. And again, humbling myself, if you can't afford Hala Taha, maybe you can afford the person that trained with Hala Taha. So
Yeah.
getting around these people just builds your own personal brand, and you can leverage that to grow your business as well.
So just, we have a few more minutes, and I just wanted to talk a little bit. Earlier, Adam talked about podcasting and monetizing it. So say I've been doing this now for a year, and I want to start uh, monetizing it more besides Podmatch. So what should steps should a podcaster who's got 100 or 200 podcasts under their belt, how should they approach doing monetization? Should they? I know some people charge like a subscription, and some people have sponsors. What's your ideas on that?
There's so we could talk about this for hours. It's an incredible question. The way I did it, and there's multiple ways, so I'm just going to focus on the way I did it because it's the way I know. I monetize my business. The podcast, in 99% of the time, there are podcasts that run ads and make a decent amount of money doing it that way. Some podcasts charge guests to come on.
Yeah.
Requires a pretty large audience to properly pitch an advertiser or a guest or so on and so forth. The best way is to niche down and to
Hmm.
monetize your business, where
Hmm.
99% of podcasts will be a cost center. It's a
Hmm.
marketing tool, but one, you're getting education as the host. Two, you're building your brand. Three, you're networking,
Yeah.
you're building your reputation. I could just kind of spitball all the nuance things you get out
Hmm.
of it. You almost want to think, okay, this is going to be a cost center, it's a
Hmm.
marketing tool. Then you have to ask yourself questions. Does my podcast align with my target market as a business person?
Yeah.
If I'm just podcasting, do I have a service I can offer my audience? One thing, you're giving away freebies. If you have a service you can offer a freebie to your podcast listeners, build your email list, build a community, have a high ticket product and then a community product where people can
Mhm.
come spend time with you or work with you at a high ticket level, we'd have to go really deep in building a product and program. But the
Mhm.
short answer is I don't tell people to monetize the podcast. I tell people to invest in the podcast and
Mhm.
find a new lane to monetize and use that podcast as a marketing tool to monetize something else. And if your audience gets big enough, then worry about monetizing the podcast and do that a little bit more.
Perfect. Such great information as I knew it would be. It is time now for you to talk about your free gift. So, what free gift do you have for all of our listeners today?
Yeah, it's so I have a marketing firm. We talked mostly about podcasting, but the free gift itself, if you go to balbertmarketing.com/secret, so balbertmarketing.com/secret, that's where I internally keep a running list of all my favorite marketing tools. So rather than doing a ton of Google searches and getting lost in the sauce, um, that list is there. And if there's anything on that list that intrigues you, send me a DM and ask me a question. But balbertmarketing.com/secret, you can have access to all my favorite marketing tools. There's a long list of podcasting tools on that list. And you can get started any way you'd like.
Great. That link is in the comments. So, go ahead and take
Perfect.
advantage, grab that. And you have a VIP gift?
Yeah, so it's the same link, but one thing that's going to be required is if you book a time, we're going to verify that you're actually a VIP. If not, I mean, send me a DM. Maybe I want to fit anybody in we can,
Mhm.
but specifically for VIPs on that link is a calendar for a 45-minute session. That's an ask me anything. I will never follow up if you don't want me to. This is not to bring you into a discovery call and pitch you anything. You can literally come with any question, any concern, any
Mhm.
comment. We'll go deep 45 minutes. And then we can either become friends or never talk again. But for VIPs, I want to honestly, and I'm going to be, I don't say this often, but I book an hour for my 45 sessions, so you'll get an hour. But that's how to do it. You click the link and then you click the calendar link.
Fantastic. So it has been just so wonderful having you here. I hope if you haven't already upgraded to VIP that you do take care of that right now so you can take full advantage. And I will tell you, Ben can help you. So if you want to really take advantage of that 45 minutes or an hour, I would do so by upgrading to VIP. We will be sharing with him that list so he knows who has upgraded. Thanks so much, Ben. And I hope to talk to you again some more on my podcast.
We absolutely will. Not even on the podcast. We're
Yeah,
going to continue to
chat
be friends. So
for sure. Awesome. All right. We have another great speaker coming up. I believe, though, we have a break right now. The dinner break is going on right now for a half an hour. So after the dinner break, you have yours truly to talk to you about It's Just a Conversation. So we'll see you at 5:30, I believe it is. Let me look at my sheet here. Yeah, 5:30 for me. So have and enjoy a nice dinner break or afternoon break, and we'll see you at 5:30. Thanks so much.